Hiya! Welcome! Well, the day that I never thought would arrive, well, I did think it would arrive, but I'm an impatient guy and I've just been hoping that I was able to shoot this video for you as soon as possible. But the day has come today. I'm finally able to talk about and also give you a little demonstration of my brand new hi-fi setup. I'm saying brand new because it's brand new to me, but most of the components are of a certain vintage, and you'll see what those are later on. And I'll kind of talk you now through the process of why I've upgraded my hi-fi and how I feel about it towards the end. As I said on last week's Records Roundup, today's video was supposed to be a vinyl box set unboxing, but as I've now got my hi-fi sorted out, I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible. So that box set unboxing is going to come next Thursday instead. Hope you don't mind me switching my schedule around a bit, but let's get on to the hi-fi. So I've been using a Sony micro system for quite some time with a cassette deck, Minidisc deck and CD player. Great system. I'd had it since I think about 2020, can't really remember. It was bought on eBay and it was under £100, including the speakers with it as well and the remote. Lovely system with great sound. As far as records were concerned, at the time I was using an Audio Technica AT LP60 turntable, a fully automatic turntable, which had Bluetooth, and I was able to listen to my records through my micro system via a weird kind of way, but it always worked out for me absolutely perfectly. I streamed the audio from the turntable to my Amazon Echo Spot, which has an auxiliary out, so I was able to plug the Amazon Echo Spot into my micro system and listen to my vinyl through the micro system via Bluetooth. I'd still be using it now probably, to be honest, but the micro system itself was getting a little bit long in the tooth really. The tape deck was seeming a little bit sluggish. It played fine, it still played all my cassettes fine, but rewind and fast forward seemed to be a bit iffy and a bit slow. The Minidisc deck, I eventually stopped using that part of the system because the little belt inside the system itself that allows you to basically eject and then put in mini discs, that needed replacing. I've seen a video about how to do it from Technics before, and it's an easy job if you know what you're doing and if really you've got a standalone mini disc deck, which I don't. I didn't fancy taking apart my micro system just to replace a tiny little belt and maybe doing damage to the cassette or CD part maybe. If it had been a standalone mini disc deck, I would have probably attempted that repair, but it wasn't a problem as far as playing mini discs was concerned because I used my portable setup, one of my smaller mini disc portables, and a little speaker that I've shown on videos in the past. And even the CD player on the Sony micro system was working okay, it was working fine, but there was a weird little quirk towards the end of its life where for some reason, not every time but a lot of times, you'd put a CD on and then it would just jump back after about 5 seconds or so to the first track at the beginning, so you'd kind of get like a repeat of the first 5 seconds of track 1. Didn't do it on any other tracks on a CD. And as I say, it wasn't something that happened all the time, and it wasn't a really big deal. The CDs played fine, the cassettes played fine, and even the Minidisc player, apart from the belt issue for the eject mechanism, that was fine as well, but I didn't like the idea of sticking a butter knife in to try and get the Minidisc out, because one of these days that probably wouldn't have worked and the system would have ended up swallowing a valuable Minidisc. So basically, around the start of this summer, I thought, you know what, it's time for me to upgrade. And initially I was thinking, I want something similar. I've not got a lot of space here at Shea Jimbo. I want something compact like the Sony you know, similar size speakers if possible, similar size unit itself, just something that sits on a surface and then I can put my speakers up a bit higher up like I did last time. Those of you who've watched many of my record videos and others will have kind of seen where my speakers were. And I was looking on eBay, as I always do really, because something that had at least CD and minidisc capabilities and preferably cassette capabilities as well. You know, you've got to go old, if you can call kind of 1990s, 2000s old, which I suppose now it is. And there were a couple of things, and I even actually bought them, but then I sort of looked at them again afterwards and decided they weren't quite right for me for whatever reason, and I won't go into the whys and wherefores, but I just wasn't completely satisfied that they would meet all my needs really. So I got refunds on a couple of micro systems that I did actually really like the look of. So then I thought, well, what am I going to do then? I could get another identical or very, very similar Sony micro system that I know it'll work and I'll be able to play vinyl through Bluetooth and all the rest of it. And I thought, I don't really want to upgrade to something that's the same, if not maybe a little bit inferior. So I thought, you know what? I'm getting old. I'm in my mid-40s now. Why don't I just look for my dream hi-fi? Make some more space, shift some things around in the room, and I started looking for separate components, basically an amp, preferably a cassette radio receiver, just so that there's less things to think about getting for it, a new turntable, which would really be a turntable that's 20 odd years older than my other one, and my Audio Technica ATLP60, by the way, still works great, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. After watching YouTube videos, Techmoans specifically, as he is really my go-to for anything relating to vintage and interesting audio equipment and hi-fi, I decided that I wanted a Technics amp or Technics receiver, and I wanted it in a particular colour, yes, because they did a red colour for a certain range of amps and turntables and speakers as well, and you'll see that they all match in a little bit. And I found eventually, this would have been probably about end of July now I think we're up to, a seller on eBay in Germany who was selling a Technics SA-K6 cassette radio receiver and Technics SLJ1 turntable, which matched, also a red colour, and also the speakers. I can't remember the exact model number of them, but you'll see it on screen in a bit anyway. And they were red as well. So basically almost everything that I needed to sort of, you know, upgrade really. No mini disc obviously, but we'll get onto that later on. The price, we did haggle for a bit. Great guy to deal with, sending each other a lot of messages via eBay, and I managed to knock him down to €550, including postage from Germany, and it came, I had some customs to pay, so really it was probably closer to €600 that I ended up paying, but he covered as much of the customs his end as he could, and these things happen really when you're buying internationally. So the system came, it looked beautiful, so happy with it, apart from the fact that, well, first of all, the turntable, it works and you'll see it working soon, but it's a little bit cracked. The lid on it, I don't know if that was in transit or whether it was kind of a bit damaged beforehand anyway. The pictures looked like it was fine, plenty of photos that I saw before I bought the thing. The main issue for me was the actual receiver itself, the SA-K6. The speaker terminal on the back is a twist lock terminal. Basically, you have bare wire coming out that end of your speaker cables, and then you have to shove it in these holes and then twist a lock. And one of the twist locks was pretty much broken. It would have needed to have had some tape on it to hold any speaker wire. I didn't like how they worked anyway, so I thought, well, what I'll do, I'll have a look, see if there's anywhere in this country that I can get this amp sent off to, who might be able to switch around the speaker terminals to banana plugs preferably, because banana plugs are just easy, you know, there's no faffing around, it's done. So I found a place in Birmingham and I posted the amp off to them. It's free postage, and at the time of me recording this, they've still got it. However, bad news. When it arrived, the bottom left of the amp was all smashed in. Now, I packed it really well. The box I used was a bit big, but I put as much packing material in there as possible, loads of bubble wrap around the thing. Basically, Royal Mail just treated the box with complete disdain, never mind the fact that I'd written fragile all over it. It needn't have got to Birmingham that way. They're still doing the repair, and I've not paid anything on it yet. And I'm hoping that I'll get that amp back. I don't know how long it'll be. They said it could be sort of 4 to 6 weeks really from when they got it, so I could be looking at least October before they're saying, yeah, pay us for the repair now, or the upgrade in the speaker terminals, and you can have it back. But then once I get it back, I've got to try, and it does look really ugly because there's like exposed circuitry and things like that on this bottom left corner. I've got to try and repair that somehow, and I think I know I'm going to do it. I need to use something called Sugru, which is like a coloured putty that basically turns into hard plastic. Whether I'll do a good enough job on it, I don't know, but I'd like to think that, because I think the thing will still work, it's not been damaged beyond repair, I hope not anyway, and if it has, then I'm sure the people in Birmingham will let me know. So that kind of set me back quite a way. I was expecting, obviously, when I sent the thing out, that yeah, I might not be able to say that I've upgraded my hi-fi fully until at least maybe October. But I thought, you know what, I've got the turntable, which has a couple of cracks in it, but basically it's fine and it still looks lovely. I've got the speakers. I'd also bought a new CD player that I unboxed in a video quite recently. Thought, you know what, I'm going to look for another amp. Yes, it's more money, and I wanted something that was red in the Technics range. I would have ideally liked another SAK6. However, I found an SAK2 instead, which is, I would say, a lesser receiver, simply because it's got less inputs and outputs on the back. That's really the only difference, but there's enough for me, certainly. I found this at a specialist hi-fi shop in Sweden, and I sent them an email because they had a website, but you couldn't buy anything on their website. You had to email them and then they'd get back to you, and I just said, do you ship to the UK? I'm interested in your red Technics SAK2. And they said, yeah, free postage, and we'll also mark it down for customs as spare parts so that you pay little or nothing in customs when it arrives. The price of it, euros, I think it was around 222 euros, I think they were charging, a funny specific amount, and that worked out to, I think, just over £200. So another £200 spent. Oh, by the way, I meant to say, I did get €100 back from the initial German eBay purchase, mainly because I complained to him about the twist lock connector being broken and the turntable being a little bit beaten up in transit. So basically that ended up being 450 rather than 550. Bought the SAK2 from Sweden, didn't take long to come. Once again, packaged beautifully, lovely condition. Obviously I know it's been serviced as well because they're a dedicated hi-fi shop. I think the German seller on eBay, he was selling a lot of audio components, but I'd get the feeling he wasn't kind of someone who would specialise in servicing old vintage hi-fi. Really happy with the SAK2, and I was able to set everything up. I got my speakers wall mounted, as well as a little floating shelf for the CD player. And I think I'd like to go up and show you everything in action right now.
two things really in terms of the politics of it. Is first of all, the lottery funding introduced by John Major had kept a whole lot of theatre and arts organisations alive, including the Battersea Arts Centre, where I worked and where lots of the creative team had worked, Ray Smith, Paulie Constable, Tony Sedgwick, and Basil and Adrian from Handspring, as it happened.
Life has been such a busy thing, with everyone telling me what to do, to think, suddenly I realize I no longer remember the song that I used to sing. For many years I've been practicing living my life without bringing life to it, loving it with my heart in an absent manner, all set me free.
But wait, that's not all, because now in my front room I've now got technically two systems, because obviously the Technics one with the FiO CD player that you've just seen, that doesn't have Minidisc, and yes, while I'm perfectly happy playing my Minidiscs via one of the portables I've got, plus a little speaker, it's not overly convenient for me to do that. I'd rather have a dedicated Minidisc system. So I went on Buyee in Japan and I picked up this beauty, and the speakers that I got for it I managed to get on eBay a little later on for around under £20.
Versprochenes Glück, doch begossen mit Pech. Am Ende der Suche von einer Hütte aus Blech. Alles schmeckt fad, alles klingt gleich. Viele werden arm, wenige viel zu reich. Schnell an der Schluchten, die Sonne nie im Gesicht. Diese Stadt ist ein Dschungel, die Expansion frisst das Licht. Ich muss hier raus, ich muss hier raus. Ja, ich muss hier raus. Alles hier ist monoton.
So yeah, I love Sony products, and that thing, the LAM1 CD MD combo, is just an absolutely beautiful thing. Only ever out in Japan, so it's plugged into a step down power transformer, but it's got its dedicated power switch, so I can just leave that turned off when I'm not using it, just so that the transformer isn't at work all the time, because I don't think it's good that these step down transformers are on all the time really. And the speakers, they more or less match the unit, to be honest. They were the closest match to the original Japanese units that were available here in the UK. Active speakers, obviously, second hand on eBay. The LAM1 unit, by the way, I won an auction for that on Buy, and it was around 140, I think. The postage from Japan wasn't too bad actually, because it's such a small unit and it doesn't weigh an awful lot. It's substantial enough, but it's just small and compact enough to get away with not paying an extraordinary amount in postage from Japan. So I've got two systems now, and as you saw, I've also got my Amazon Echo Spot plugged in to the active speakers, so I'm still able to stream music as well. Obviously I don't need to do that from the Audio Technica anymore, because that turntable's been put away now. I'm going to keep it as a spare, because you never know, like, components might break. I love the Technics SLJ1 record player, but I'm not expecting it to work forever, and that's something I feel may need an upgrade eventually. Hopefully I can get something else in red, as you've probably noticed I do like red hi-fi. I'm going to keep my Audio Technica turntable just as a spare, and I was using that as an interim system with the Sony LAM1 and the active speakers and the Amazon Echo, while I was waiting for the new second amplifier to come from Sweden, and it just streamed all my vinyl via Bluetooth, just the way it used to for my Sony micro system that I was using for the past few years. So that was a good system, and it meant I was able to listen to vinyl after a few weeks of not really having any sort of good setup really. But now the Technics system, I love it, it's fantastic. The sound, cassette sounds wonderful, CD sounds great, as CDs really ought to. I'm very happy with the speakers, they look amazing, they sound amazing. The record player sounds brilliant. Does it sound better than the Audio Technica? Well, I was always streaming that via Bluetooth, which you would think would sort of diminish the sound a little bit, but I was always very impressed with how my Sony systems handled the Bluetooth really. And I've not listened to enough records on my SLJ1 yet to really decide, oh yeah, that's better or the same or worse than the last one. I think it's going to be about the same really, maybe slightly better, because it's plugged into a proper amp this time round. So that is my hi-fi build. I'm delighted with it. Yeah, there's been some problems and it's been quite expensive. I've actually filed a claim with Royal Mail to see if they'll compensate me for any of the damage that they caused when I was sending the first amp, the German one, the K6, off to Birmingham, but I'm not holding my breath on that. Like I say, I got €100 back as a refund from the eBay seller, just as kind of like a gesture, because the turntable seemed a little bit beaten up, but it still works. But I never liked those twist lock terminals. By the way, there is the same terminals in the SA-K2 as the K6, but I'm coping with them. Ideally, I'd like them swapped out, but I don't really want to send anything off to Birmingham again in case the same happens and it arrives with bits broken off. Everything's fine, love it. Thank you for indulging me in watching this. I hope you found it fairly interesting and you enjoyed seeing my new hi-fi, or my new two hi-fis really. I don't count the Sony as a hi-fi, it's just a little kind of secondary system that I'm able to play Minidiscs on. I probably won't even use the CD player on that, to be honest, because I'd rather use the good one, my FiO, that's in the main system. But it's good for CD to Minidisc copying, which I might get back into now. It can do it at 4 times speed. Anyway, probably loads of stuff that I wanted to mention that I haven't, so if there's been any annotations added throughout this video, that'll be me during editing remembering that I wanted to tell you something that I forgot to say. So special thanks go to my wonderful subscribers and generous patrons. I'm going to go now, and of course I'm going to go ahead and listen to something on my wonderful new, although it's not new, it's vintage, and I guess 1980s is vintage now, isn't it? That's depressing, that, really, because I was born in 1980, so I always thought anything from before I was born can be called vintage, but I guess 1980s and maybe even stuff in the 90s is considered vintage now. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy my new hi-fi system, and I do hope that all of you will join me again next time for my next video. Cheers, everyone. See ya!